Hi, everybody. This is Virginia Milner coming to you for the DeKalb County Library System. And August 21st is Senior Citizen Day. So I wanted to do something really nice, easy project that we can do very quickly because, hey, we're senior citizens. We don't have a lot of time to mess around. So I thought I would do a really cute project. I see a lot of things where we use these European beads and we make the wire bracelets with the beads kind of rolling around. What are they called? I forget because I don't have one. I know friends that collect those things, and oh my goodness, it's a huge deal. The name is sticking in my head. If anybody thinks of it, please tell me. It keeps slipping in and out. Senior moment. Anyway, it's very famous European bracelets, and they use this type of bead with the large holes in them. I don't know why I'm thinking Miranda. That's not even anything. But anyway, they've got the large holes, and you put them on a wire bracelet, and they just kind of roll around until you fill the bracelet up, and they're very pretty. Well, I have a bunch of these type of beads. They're not those expensive ones, but these type of beads. And I wanted to do something different with them. And they're also colorful. They usually have lots of colors in them. And they have these large holes. And so there's several different things that you can do. So I thought, okay, let's do another mixed media project. And let's just do a really simple bracelet with leather and the European beads. European style beads and some wire and some end clasps, and let's make a bracelet. And I made this one nice and colorful, but this is really a unisex project. So what I thought I would do is make one for guys, or just make one that's a darker, more earth tones. And so we're going to be using these. Aren't those pretty? I mean, they're I wouldn't say they're masculine, but they're more geared towards anybody that doesn't want a lot of flash. So we're going to do that one. This was the one that I made for show, and then I wear occasionally. And then we're going to make this one that's a little bit more appropriate, and I think would be a guy might like. So let's do that. All you need for this project is the European style beads. And I emphasize that, or any large hole beads, because we're doubling up through the wire. We're putting 2 strands of leather through the wire. And my leather is 2 millimeters. 2 millimeters. You can use 2, 3, 4. It depends on what your beads will accommodate. So those are the things that you need to take into consideration. The size of your hole needs to accommodate the leather that you use. So we need our beads. You can use any large hole beads. You can use wooden beads, which I started to use for this one, but I wanted to stick with the European. You can use the European beads, whatever beads you want, and then leather cord. Then we're going to be using 20 gauge wire to make our clasp. This is a very requested one, and it's really good for something that guys might wear because it's just very sturdy and not frou-frou, for lack of a better term. So I get requests to do this one, to show this one a lot. So we're going to use that. It's a very vintage clasp. It's called it's a Egyptian style clasp. 20 gauge wire is what we need, and 24 gauge wire for wrapping. You don't have to put this wrap on the side, but I like to kind of control the bead so it's not rolling up and down the wire. So I put a small wrap and spiral right beside my bead, so it won't go any further than this back and forth unless I pull it. So that's what we need. Once again, 20 gauge wire, 24 gauge wire, 3 European or large hole beads, leather cord. The leather cord you want to cut whatever the size of your wrist is, cut that twice. And then if it's too much, you can cut off at the end, because we are going to be using these little clamps. And I'll show you that again down on the other camera. And our usual pliers, round nose, square nose, and cutters. That's it. And a ruler so that you can measure your wire. Okay, and your leather. Okay, so let's get this show on the road and get started. All right, so here are all of the components. I have my wire. I have my little leather, or my little clamps that I'm going to use on the ends here. Here's my clamp, one for each end. And we have our 20 gauge wire, and our cord. And again, I cut this just 2 pieces, and the length of my, whatever your wrist is, whatever the length of your wrist is, you can add another 1/2 inch or 1 inch. That way you can just cut off what you don't need just to be safe. It's better to have it a little longer than you need than shorter. Okay, so here we go. Here is the ease of this. You just take your leather, string it through one of your beads, fold it in half, and that's one side. So that's one side of my bracelet. So what I want to do is take one of my other beads, and I'm going to slide it on my leather cord over both of the wires. So I have one of the wires going through so that it's a directional thing. It's sliding through the bead from right to left. And then the second bead is going to go through both wires, like so. And now I'm going to go ahead and wrap the side here to hold the bead on, and then we'll get to the other side. So what I want to do is take a piece of 24 gauge wire. Doesn't have to be much. Give yourself about 4 or 5 inches. And what we don't use for this side, we can use for the other side. Just cut that off. And I want to make sure that my wires aren't crossing over. I want to make sure they're side to side. And then I want to decide where I want my bead to land. If I want it down here, that's fine. If you want a nice big distance between your center bead and your side bead, that's fine. You might want to take into consideration where it's going to land on your wrist. I wanted mine to be all mostly on top so that you can see it. If you put it too far over, it's going to end up down here under your wrist. So I wanted it to be on top. So look at that when you're placing your bead. You can just lay it on your wrist. This one's in the center, this one's on the side. And wherever that lands is where you're going to wrap. If you want it further down, that's fine too. Okay, so that's where my bead is going to go. Nice And this is my wrapping point. So I'm going to take my wire, I'm going to slide it in between my cord. And I like to put a little bend in it because I think it's easier to manipulate if I do. So I put a little bend in my wire like so. I'm going to slide it in between my two wires, right there where I want my bead to land. And I'm going to squeeze it. Starting it is the biggest challenge of all. It's not hard. It's just a slight challenge. So slide that in there. And start my wrap. And I like to have this little tail so that I have something to hold on to. So I'm going to pull it tight. And now I have a tail to hold on to. Check my placement again. It's about right. Yes. The computer's talking to me for some reason. Okay, so now I'm going to start my wrap. I've got the small end wrapped around one side of my leather. Now I'm going to wrap around both sides. Let's get up there where you can see a little better. So now I'm going to start wrapping around both ends of my cord. I want to keep it nice and close together, my wraps. Don't want my cord, where am I? Get over here. I don't want my cords to cross over. I think that's a little too close. Let's back it up. Okay, wrap that around. And you can decide how many wraps you want. And I want the wraps to be kind of close together. I don't know why I can't get this where I want it. There we go. I want my wraps kind of close together. So I'm going to push them together with my fingers, or you can use your pliers and squeeze it together. Check the other side, squeeze those rings together so that they're nice and close, and keep wrapping. And you can decide how far down you want to go with your wraps. I like to go at least 4 times. Okay, I think we're good. Yes. And so what I'm going to do now I'm going to cut off this short tail that I have here on the bottom. So I'm going to bring it up and over and see where this is where we wrapped it around. Get that focused here. This is where we wrapped it around the one side. I'm going to bring it over and clip it off on the other side. So I'm going to clip it so that the end is right in between my two ends of my leather. And I like to turn this down so that the little tip doesn't go flying. I like to put it in something. So I'm going to put it in the little, you can see where I have little, well, that's the tail of the wire. I can put it down here in the little well of this tub. And then it's safe in there until I get it out. So now I have this little end. I think it's hard to see because everything's brown, including my fingers. But I have the little tail of wire here sticking up, And I want to just push it down against my cord. So there we are. And now I'm going to put a little spiral on the top. Now, the reason I like to do that is because if the hole is very large, you need something to keep it from going over your wire. So I'm going to put a little spiral on the top that gives me a little bit more wire up there, and will keep my bead from sliding off. It's not going to slide off because you're going to have this little clip on the end, but this way it'll keep it from moving beyond the wire. Okay, so there's the little end that I cut off, and I'm going to take my wire. I'm going to take my long nose pliers, and I'm going to grab the tip of my wire with the pliers, and I'm going to make a coil. So I'm going to start with a loop, just make a small loop. Okay, and then I'm going to finish it up with a little coil using my flat pliers. And I'm just going to just coil the wire around itself. And I just keep rotating until I have a coil right on top of my wrap. And there we go. And now my bead is secure. There, that's one side, all finished. Let's go to the other side and do the same thing. Take my wire, feed it through my center bead. And this is why I said you have to make sure that the hole in your bead will accommodate all of this cord. So that's fed through there. Pull the cord down until it's halved. And there's my other side. And now I'm going to, I used 4 inches of wire, 4 inches of wire to do that side. I thought I'd have some left over, but I do not. So I need another 4 inches of wire for the other side. And you can just eyeball it, you don't have to measure. I do it because I know some people are very, very much sticklers for exact measurements, and that is fine, especially if you don't want to have to cut off any wire and throw it away. I understand completely. Okay, so now we're going to wrap the other side of our bracelet. And now this one, I need to kind of measure because I want it to be the same distance away as my other side. So let's see what we've got. So I'm going to go down to the center of my bead here. I'm going to start my wrap there. So it's about 1 3/8 inches from the center of my middle bead to the back of my side bead. About 1 3/8 inches. I need the same thing on the other side. So here's my 3/8. Double check. Yes. 3/8 and go down there. And this is where I want to start my wrap. Let's do this. Put my bead on. Probably would have been better to put the bead on first, Virginia. Measure again. 1 3/8. Yes, right there. And there we have it. Yes, 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 yes. Starting my wrap. Put the little bend in my wire. Boop, 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 boop. I have to entertain myself. Okay, and here we go. Slide. The tail of my wire in between my two cords here. Get in there. Come on. Stop making me look bad. Okay. And now, pretty sure I have that nicely marked, that I'm going to measure it just one more time to make sure. Okay. 1 3/8. There's the back. And there we have it. Yeah, that looks good. Scoop my bead out of my way, grab my wire, and start my wrap. Tighten that bead that's in the center, wrapped around the one wire. Let's tighten that up so I have something to hold on to that won't move. And start my wrap around both tails of leather. And it's really neat if I have the bead to hold on to as well, because it gives me some leverage. Yes. How many wraps did I do on this side? I think I did 6. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. And the wraps are going to be covered up, so you don't have to be exact. Okay. I'll take my pliers and push my little rings together, my wraps together so that they're a little neater. Check the other side, do the same thing. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. One more wrap. There we go. And very nice. Okay. Measurement. 1 3/8. And slide it down a little bit more. It's a little adjustable at this point where I put my finishing touches on. I can kind of scoop my wire a little bit. Nice. And 3/8. Tiny bit more. There we go. Nice. Okay. So now we're ready to finish it off, and I'm going to make my spiral. First, I'm going to cut this. Flip it over, neaten up my little coils back here. Let's get that over so that they're nicely squeezed together. And I'm going to bring my short tail around. Here's where I started, over the 1/2. Over the one side of my cord. I'm going to bring this short tail around and cut it off so that it's right laying over the other piece of cord, right in the middle of the two. And again, find my little compartment that I can cut off that little tail and wrap it into. So there's the initial wrap. Here's the initial wrap. I don't know if you can see this. The initial wrap over here. And here's my final wrap with the tail, and I'm just going to push it down so that the two ends are together. There we go. And now flip it over and let's make our coil. And we didn't have this much. I think I had about 1 inch. So I'm going to snip that off so that they're this about the same size, as close as I can get, because I didn't measure the other side. Virginia, again, eyeballing it. Let's clip that off. By having enough of a tail that I can just hold it without having to put it down in a little well. And let's make a spiral. Take my round nose pliers, make a little loop. And let's make a nice little spiral. And this is 24 gauge wire, so it's very malleable. Doesn't take much to get it to do what I want. Sorry, I had to take my glasses off because it is hot and I'm perspiring just a tiny bit around my nose, where my glasses are. Okay, let's keep rolling that until I get to my leather. And let's let my spiral find its place on top of my wraps. There we go. Tighten that up just a little bit. And there we are. Ta-da! Cool beans, huh? I like it. But what I don't like is that my spiral is on the wrong side. How did you do that? So that is an easy fix. Sometimes I like it when I make a boo-boo. So all I need to do is unfurl my spiral just a little bit. Just bring it out. And flop it on the other side. No biggie. Take it off one side, put it on the other. so that now they match. I want that on top of my bracelet. It's part of my design. There we go. Here's my bracelet. And now all I need to do is cut the ends of my cord so that they match. And I can just use my cutters for that. Cut that off. Get rid of that little nub there. And that's where my little clamps come in. So these little clamps have teeth, which is awesome, because then they just catch the cord. Let's see if we can get that a little clearer. They just catch the cord and hold it. So I just take my little clamp, slide it over my two ends of my cord, and then I squeeze it. You just squeeze it closed. And you can do it with your fingers, and then I like to finish it off with my pliers so I know it's nice and tight. That's it. Nice and tight. Go to the other side and do the same thing. Clip off whatever excess is on here. Make it even. Grab my clamp, slide it on, squeeze it closed. Before I squeeze it completely closed, I always check and make sure that my cords are nicely centered. And then give it a good squeeze. Take my pliers and squeeze it nice and tight. There we have it. Isn't that awesome? I love it. And if you need to make any adjustments, you can. Check your wires, make sure they're moving in the direction you want them to go. But there it is. Now we're going to make our clasp. Now, the thing that I like to do is make split rings to go, because these little openings aren't that big. And I would love to put a closed jump ring in there, but of course you can't. So what I do is make a split ring that I can slide in. You can do, on one side, I like to do 2 rings if I can. But again, these are very narrow openings. So a split ring works just fine. And for that, I need some 20 gauge wire. And then I will grab the tip of my 20 gauge, and notice I'm not cutting it off the spool. It usually only takes about 1/2 inch of wire to make a jump ring. So if you want to do a split ring, you're going to need at least 1.5 inches of wire, because a split ring is just going to be 1.5 times around instead of a full time around. So I'm just going to take my pliers and I'm going to grab the wire. I'm going to go about 1/3 of the way down. I like to take the tip of my pliers and give it a little turn first. So I've got it already started. And then I slide it down on my pliers and it'll hook right on there. And it's easier to manipulate and to keep in place. And depending on the size that you want your jump rings to be, that will determine how far down your pliers you go. So I'm going to go about 2/3 of the way down so I can have a decent size jump ring here, or split ring. And I'm going to start making a loop. Now, here's my loop. And I'm going to keep going until I have another half loop. And I want the end to be on the outside. And for me, the outside is towards the tip of my pliers. So I want the end of my wire, which is right here, the tip of my wire, to be out towards the tip of my pliers so that I can make sure that both of my loops are the same size. I'm going to go around 1.5 times, like so. I'm going to clip my wire. And there is my split ring. So I have 2 loops or 2 sides of wire on this side. And on this side, it's only 1 side of wire. Because again, these are very thin and they may not accommodate 2 loops. Then I can just open that up, split apart a little bit. Doesn't need to be much. And I can slide that on. My little clasp, my little clamp, I guess I should call it. And then just roll that around there until it's secure in the spot where there's only a single ring. And I just take my pliers or your fingers and just push those ends together. And I like to push my ends under a little bit. And there we have it. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. A little bend in my wire. Slide it down to where I want the jump ring to start. In my case, it's about 2/3 the way down. Make a loop. Keep that tip on the outside. And keep wrapping until I have 1.5 loops. And then clip. Okay. Open up my rings a little bit, just enough to get my clamp opening through there. And roll it around until it's in place. Push my ends together. There we go. Again, I try to slide my ends under a little bit just so I know they're nice and tight. Here we go. And now it's time to make your clasp. Now, you can use a regular, any kind of clasp for this, but I wanted to show you how to make this one because I get a lot of requests for it and people seem to enjoy it. I know I do. Okay. So let's make a clasp. So what I'm going to do is take 6 inches of 20 gauge wire. Okay, 6 inches. Clip that off. There we go. And then I'm going to take my square pliers and I'm going to take my wire and put the tip of it just about 1/8 of an inch down my pliers. It doesn't have to be too far. Just slide that in there. Doesn't need to be anything sticking out the back. And I'm just going to give it a little bend, a little twist until I have this little tail sticking out. Then I'm going to take my round nose pliers. I'm going to slide them in. I'm going to go about halfway down my pliers, maybe a little less than half. It doesn't have to be too much. I'm just going to make a loop like this. Okay, this is the hook that we're making. So it doesn't have to be too big. Okay. And I'm going to make a loop. So here's the tip of my wire. I'm going to roll in the opposite direction of that tip. I'm just going to keep opening my pliers until the tip of my wire is back in the back like so. So this is what I'm going to have when I stop rotating. Okay, then I'm going to take the tip of my pliers, take it back just a little further, yeah. Then I'm going to take the tip of my pliers and I'm going to put it just inside the loop. And I'm going to bend this long end of wire down so it matches, it meets the short end, the short tail. So there we go. So now my short wire and my long wire are lined up. So there's my short tail. There's my long tail on the other side. And there's my loop in the center. Short tail, long tail, loop. Okay, so now I need to decide how big a loop I want. For this one, I just gave myself an inch. Doesn't have to be very long. You can look at your bracelet and say, I need a really long length. I don't have enough of my leather or whatever size you want it to be. So I need a really long hook, like say this one. See how much longer and bigger that is? So you can decide what size you want it to be. I don't want it to be too big. So I'm going to just give myself about an inch of wire, and that will leave me with a hook where the loop is approximately 1/4 of an inch around. So I'm going to give myself that inch here. Grab my round nose pliers. I'm going to go down and I'm going to grab the wire with the tip of my pliers. Here is my little tail right here. I know it's hard to see directional things on this camera, but here's my little tail and here's my pliers, and I'm going to bring my long wire up until it's it's sandwiching in the little tail. So I'm going to bring that around. And so there's my long wire, there's my medium length wire, and there's my little tail of wire in the center. Long, tail, medium. It's kind of sandwiched in there. So now I'm going to go down here to the tip of my little loop here. And I'm going to make this, it looks like a kind of a little bill right now, a duck's bill. And squeeze it a little bit more, so it's a little closer together. And then I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to give this a little squeeze just beyond the tip of my bend. So now this is what I have. All right. So now I'm going to go back to my little loop here. And I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to slide it in the loop as far down as it will go. Yeah, I skipped a step. First thing I want to do is take my long tail of wire just at the bottom of my loop. I'm going to grab this with the tip of my pliers, all 3 pieces, long tail, little knobby piece, and my medium-sized piece. And I'm just going to bend the wire back like so. Then I'm going to take my pliers, I'm going to slide it in under the long tail and into the loop until I can't go any further. I'm going to close down. And again, I'm going to be saying this a lot so that you know that you're holding it correctly. Here's my long tail that goes all the way up here. There's my little tail, short tail in the center, and my medium tail on the other side. And I'm going to bring my long tail around the pliers all the way around until I have another little loop. So I'll take that out and show you what we've got. So now we have 2 loops. One on each side. Put that back in. I just wanted to show you that. Put that back in there. And keep going with my long tail. Get back in there. All the way around until I'm at kind of a right angle. So there we are. 2 loops. One on one side, one on the other side. Slide that back in there. And now we're going to start a wrap. So I'm going to start wrapping around all of my wires with my long tail. And I want to make sure that the start of this is very straight so that the wrap will be straight. And I'm just going to start wrapping around. And now we're just kind of sandwiching that. Now you can see why that little guy is supposed to be in the center, because now we're going to wrap around both of the longer wires, and that little tail in the center is going to be completely covered. And just keep on wrapping until I've gone about 1/3 of the way down my wires. I like to check every once in a while, flip it over to the other side, make sure it looks like it's straight. Everything's straight here. Check my wires if they're not completely locked together, just squeeze it a little bit with pliers, and then continue my wrap until I get it down to the length of the wrap that I want. And I like different lengths. This is a really long one. This one's a little shorter. It just depends on, where's my camera? It just depends on the look that you're going for. I'm going to give it one more wrap around there. And I think that's going to be good. So now I need to clip it off. And what I want to do is clip it off so that the little end is right in between my 2 wires. Because if I do that, it will settle down in there better. And it just conforms better to laying down on my wire. So now I'm going to give myself a little clip here. Right there with the tip of my clippers. Boom. And I had 6 inches of wire. And see that? I don't even have an inch of wire left. So good for me. Okay, take my pliers and push that little end down. Very nice. It's going to be under the loop anyway, but I just kind of, I don't like it off to the side because it can snag on something. If it's right here in the center, it will be underneath. It'll be underneath my loop. Now, if I want to make do any shaping, I can push my little wires together. There we go. Make sure my loops are nice and as neat as I can get them. Very nice. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is go down here to the tip. This is where the end is, so I'm going to go on this side because I want a loop to be over the tip. So I'm going to go down to the end of my wire, grab my round nose pliers, go right down here to the tip, and give it a little bend. Just turn it up just a tiny bit. Like that. And I'm going to go up here to the bottom of my rings. I can see a little space there, so I'm going to push those rings together so they're a little neater. Okay, so I'm going to go down here with the tip of my pliers again, and I'm going to bend this back in the same direction that I bent the little tip here. I'm going to bend that up like so. And then I'm going to take a little adjustment. There we go. Then I'm going to go down to the larger part of my pliers. Slide it all the way down to the back of my little rings, the bottom of my rings. And I'm going to bring my wires up over and across my pliers. Oops. All the way over. Squeeze it down until I have a hook. There we go. Here's my hook. And then make whatever little adjustments I want to make. Make sure it's straight. All my loops are lined up. Just go in there and tap it a little bit. And voila. There's my hook. Neaten this up a little bit. There's my hook. Cool beans. And now decide what side you want it to be on. Because remember, we have our little spiral on top. So I want to be able to hook it whichever way is easiest for me. And for me, that would be to have my little clamp on this side. So open up the end of my loop on my split ring. Slide my clasp on my hook and roll it around until it is in place. The way I want it. Come on. Get in there. There we go. And push the ends back together again. Squeeze them. And just making little adjustments. There we go. Then in place. And we're all finished. All right. So there's my bracelet. Just passing that. I like to make sure that the ends of my hook are nicely and really nice and close to the rings so that it won't slide out. It won't come off until I take it off. Boom. When I put it on, it snaps in place. Snap. I don't know if you can hear that. Let's see if we can try that again. Okay. Did you hear that? There we go. All right, there's the bracelet, all finished. Isn't that neat? I love it. I think I made that one a little bit bigger, so I'm gonna have to give it away. Oh well, I have mine. Here we are. There's my guy bracelet. Here's my girl bracelet. Yay, everybody's happy. Well, yeah, this is a lot bigger. If I decided to keep it for myself, I'll cut it down. There we go. There we have it. There is our nice, easy project for today. Okay, there they are. There are the bracelets. This is a hard one to show because I have to twist my arm all kinds of weird ways in order to get you to see. There it is. There they are. All finished. Nice and simple. I like them. This one is a little big, which is why I have it down on my arm, but that's okay. It's probably staying with me. Anyway, there we go. There are our bracelets. You can have a nice, colorful, more summery version. And then this one will easily take me into fall and winter. But that is awesome. I like it a lot. There we go. That's it. That is our bracelet for today. I hope you liked it. And I hope you'll continue to come back and watch these videos. I keep getting some really interesting comments about how funny my videos are. I am not sure how to take that. I hope they're instructional. I hope they give you some incentive to do this and some encouragement to do it. I try to keep it somewhere between beginner and intermediate. So they are never going to be too hard. And I try to be meticulous about walking you through each step, which is why it's probably a little longer than it needs to be, but I want you to be able to get it. So I hope that I'm doing my job. I hope I'm doing a good job towards you. Anyway, I hope you'll make one of these. It's very, very simple. Go get some of those European beads and or some large hole beads. Any large hole beads will do. And let me see what you make. I would love to see it. I was hoping that we would be back in person by now, but we are not. So this is my only way of knowing what you're doing and how you're doing. And if I'm doing okay is if you give me some feedback and you show me what you make. So until next time, enjoy your week, enjoy your weekend, wherever you are in the week, and have fun with this. And we will see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.